A few thoughts. I mean, first of all, criminal investigations take time. It is, in a typical routine environmental criminal case, it would take 12 to 18 months to put together a criminal case. In a more complex case, it might take 2 to 3 years, which is the time frame that we're in. This is not a typical case, however. The Justice Department, from the very beginning, has had a very large number. I don't know the exact number, I haven't asked, but they created a task force. They had more than enough attorneys to put together this case in real time. We all know the saying, justice delayed is justice denied. This is a classic example of that. I mean, there's no reason why the Justice Department couldn't have put this case together sooner. The Clean Water Act charges that I've talked about this morning, the Siemens manslaughter charges, the Migratory Bird Treaty Act charges are not complicated. They're relatively straightforward charges that could have been brought by the first anniversary of the spill. Now, part of the delay is no doubt caused by the transfer to the criminal division, just the simple fact of that change, which took place at the 11-month mark. And to be fair to the criminal division, they needed time at that point to get their arms around the evidence and figure out how they wanted to proceed with the case. So that certainly would explain why it wasn't brought in the first year. But it doesn't explain why it wasn't brought by the second anniversary of the spill. And you know, it's speculation on my part, but I think it's because of what I alluded to this morning. I think the criminal division is so focused on the non-environmental crime. They want to reach in this case and prove lies to Congress. They want to reach and prove securities fraud. And absolutely, if they can prove those charges, they should do it. But this is not a securities fraud case. It is not a case about lying to Congress. It's a case about a national disaster. And those charges should have been brought by now. Yes, sir.
Well, in light of that, is it possible that perhaps the criminal case is not as strong as you believe it to be, or they would have done so? After all, you've got an administration that is as hostile to oil companies and as pro-environmental as any in my memory. And if they can't find it, maybe it's not, for whatever reason, it just isn't there.
This is not a hard case. I mean, I said in the summer of 2010, there's a slam dunk criminal case. All they have to show is the failure to use reasonable care under the circumstances. The Justice Department thinks that it can prove a whole lot more than that. They filed pleadings in the civil case just last month talking about how they intended to prove gross negligence and willful misconduct. Much higher standards that frankly will be not unmeetable, but will be difficult to meet. But ordinary negligence, what they need to prove for the Clean Water Act violations, not difficult. There is evidence in each and every one of the reports has cited numerous examples of what would easily equate to that standard. So I'm certain that's not the issue. I mean, the criminal division has a tendency to take a long time in cases. Certainly we want prosecutors to fully investigate before they make charging decisions. But I think what's going on here is what I said a few minutes ago. I think they're focused in other areas. I don't think they have their priorities right in this investigation. They may end up in the right place, but by the time they get us there, they'll have lost a lot of the value of a criminal prosecution, in my opinion. Yes, sir?
Why was it transferred to the criminal division?
The question is, and I'm sorry, I didn't repeat the last question, but this question was, why was the case transferred to the criminal division? The stated reason was that the department wanted to create a task force. The department creates task forces on a regular basis when there are major matters that need to be addressed, and the benefits of a task force are it allows you to centralize decision-making authority, which is often an issue within the Justice Department, and it allows you to put more resources on a case. And to be fair to the department, the criminal division has more prosecutors than any other part of the Justice Department. It has a leadership team that I think the Attorney General and Deputy Attorney General have a lot of confidence in. And so I think their comfort level was highest having the case in the criminal division. But what doesn't make sense about that is that they had in the Environment Division, in the Environmental Crime Section, an office of 40 prosecutors, far more than they needed to handle the Gulf oil spill, who had the kind of experience that you need to successfully bring a Clean Water Act case and bring it in real time. And I'm certain that if this case had stayed in the environmental crime section, we would have seen charges by now.
But,
Yes, sir.
well, you asked in your speech, and this gentleman just asked, why was it transferred? And you said, you know, the Justice Department explanation begs the question, why was it transferred? So the question keeps getting raised, but you're not answering the question. Why was it transferred?
Well, I mean, so
From your perspective.
the question is, why was it transferred to the criminal division? And the suggestion's been made that I'm not answering the question. Look, I'm answering the question as best I can, not being at the Justice Department anymore. I know the department well. I know that there's historically a very close working relationship between the Attorney General, the Deputy Attorney General, and the head of the criminal division. There is certainly less day-to-day work done between the Attorney General, the Deputy Attorney General, and the head of the Environment Division. The Criminal Division handles the bulk of the criminal cases in the department. So there's certainly good reasons for a Justice Department management team to decide that it wants its biggest criminal case to be handled out of the Criminal Division. But what's unfortunate about this decision, and why I think it was the wrong decision, was it robbed the department of expertise that you can't find anywhere else in the government, you can't find anywhere else in the world. And I think the case has suffered for that decision.
But just to follow up real quick, the inference of a lot of what you've been saying is that that was the reason it was transferred. They wanted to rob it from the people with expertise because they didn't want to bring that tough case.
No, so the question is that the inference is that they were actually trying to undermine the case, and that I don't think. The earlier question, which I failed to repeat, said that this is an administration that is as hostile to oil and gas interests and as pro-environment as any. I'm not sure that I agree with that. In fact, I'm sure I don't. Look at the Nixon administration. That's in recent memory, isn't it? There's certainly reasons why this administration would want to bring this case. But to be honest, I started as chief of the environmental crime section at the end of the Clinton administration, but I served mostly during the Bush administration because, that's how it goes. Elections change administration. So I started in a Democratic administration. I served through a Republican administration. And I can't say that the Republican administrations that I served in were any less aggressive. In fact, I think both parties, when they're in power at least, want to be tough on environmental crime. And so I don't think this is a situation where the department was trying to undermine its case, but I do think their decision had that effect.